Pittsburgh sports. All right, it has been, to say it has been an interesting week in Pittsburgh sports might be the understatement of the year. I'm here tonight with Gary, the Pearl Kin, a better time of sports, Chris, the Stilt Fletcher, one of your heroes, right there. And I'm Dave Red, since I'm in a Celtic mode.
Oh. Need a cigar.
I wish I had one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Bob Ryan. Great. Love Bob Ryan.
Yeah. 83 times in here they talk about beating the Lakers, so I just don't want to go beyond that.
Oh.
Yeah, well, there's been some whippings back. So
I know. So how are you gentlemen tonight?
we're good. We're good, Red. And Stilt.
The Stilt?
I'm bitter.
I'm a little angry too, but I'm trying to tone it down a little bit. So
All right. There's a lot of anger. No. This is an anger.
This is an aggression release show that we put on here.
That's right. That's your UFC shirt.
I have lots of aggression. So
Okay, so we're going to put a cage in there, or are you going to be there yourself? Are you going to invite
I have the glove if you guys piss me off. I mean, I have this there, and I'll throw it back. I have the glove with me. But
I say that's
funny. As ugly as the UFC is to a lot of people, and I get it, it also has some of the most amazing stuff. What I'm going to talk about makes Ruiz Joshua look like a walk in the park.
All right. We'll do that on the next show.
Yep.
Last night I had the pleasure of being at Settlers Ridge, Barnes & Noble for a book signing, and in front of me was this book. And I don't know if you guys ever came across this before, but this was the highlight of the evening. It was a book on erotic stories for Punjabi widows. This must be very specific.
I guess all you could say is love means never having to say you're sorry. Sorry, that's me.
I speak Punjabi, but I have not thought about this topic.
Well, the amazing thing, now there is virtually millions, 6-7 million books on Amazon. So anything under 10,000 is usually a fantastic rating. So erotic stories for Punjabi widows. Now, we've got to assume that Punjabi widows are a fairly minor number.
I would think so, given the cultural issues, yeah.
Okay.
But yet they somehow curry favor. Indian.
We're bad. This is bad now, but good.
It's rated 3,409. There are a lot of people buying this.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah.
How much did this distract you from your signing, though? Look at you. Were you finding your mind going to the?
I wanted to pick up the book to read it because obviously, when you see something so specific,
yeah,
you're curious. But I held my own. I stayed down, and I avoided reading about Punjabi women. So I think that's a great lead into our Steeler talk tonight. So I do want to first mention to Mary Beth Lipek Spittler, great high school friend of mine, and all the others. This is a rarity. I wore it last year to pay off a bet when Pitt lost at Notre Dame. I remember. Antonio and I's host.
Yeah.
But my disdain for the SEC is so much, so bitter, so Gary-like. That I am donning a hat that I never would usually wear. So I want you guys out there who are Notre Dame fans to take this to your heart and kick Georgia's ass tomorrow. Because Lord knows we don't need 4 SEC teams in the playoffs this coming winter. I'm thinking.
Yep, it's becoming a big issue. I agree.
I digress. Apparently this week, we'll talk Steelers here. Our next show, I promise we'll get into other Pittsburgh things, maybe even the Riverhounds, to lighten things up a little, because they are a happy team. Probably the lone happy team. Yeah, it's a rarity. It's a rarity. But, we lost Ben Roethlisberger, which we've talked about several times on this show and our last show. The hell do we even call that show? The Duke's Court. The Duke's Court. Yes.
Yeah, the previous ones, yeah.
Yeah. About how Ben looked like he was aging quickly. Well, I never caught him throwing a ball and doing this before, which apparently now I couldn't catch that from my luxurious fifth level seat that was 94 steps up twice because I had too much water and tea before I went into the stadium, which is a rookie mistake. So, Ben looks like he's having the football version of Tommy John surgery. Can we call it Terry Bradshaw surgery?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, okay. Why not? Why not?
Okay. So, most thought that was the disaster to happen, but Ben had proudly led them to 6 points in his 2 weeks of work so far.
6 points, 6 quarters. That's a point a quarter.
He looked really slow, I thought, against New England too, particularly with his blitzes, I thought.
And had no zip. So maybe this is it. Maybe next year he comes back. This fixes a problem for a 37-year-old. Maybe he comes back and plays like a 34-year-old. But in the meantime, this guy's a huge fan of Mason Rudolph from the Oklahoma State days.
Yep.
He's got touch. He's a hard worker. He seems to have good football smarts. He looked great against Seattle. I thought he did. His lone mistake wasn't his mistake. Dante Moncrief, who I notice is listed still for this week as the first-team wide receiver.
Stunning.
I mean, he's dropped, 6, but he's been targeted 8 times, has dropped 5, caught 3.
He's like pick receivers, yeah.
Well, and that lost the game. I mean, Rudolph
did.
The game for it, not for him having the pass hit off his hands. But I thought he played a great game. And I thought the Steelers made a great move to those who thought they would just go into the fetal position. I can't get the camera down, or I would go into the fetal position in the corner to show you what people thought. Anybody have a better camera angle? No?
Not one that I can pull that off. Not one that I can pull that off, no.
I'm going to wake up screaming tonight, I think.
Well, maybe that's what we hire. Maybe that's what we hire for the show going forward is a sketch artist.
Or just a creative director that can come in and kind of set these wonderful venues we're in for.
So we can show people in the field.
We could have a little acts going on, right?
Have Patty, call up to Patty and see if she can find a picture of somebody in a fetal position for us.
She's probably listening, so she'll probably try to do that, and we'll just hold the phone up or something. So
okay, all right, that's fine. That's fine. Go to
you're right, though. I mean, football in Pittsburgh have a tendency to overreact. It's still pro football. You don't just say, "Okay, the game's over. We're going home."
This could be Patty's way into the show business.
Exactly, into the pantheon that we've reached.
Well, but they make a balls to the walls move. Who saw this coming? This was not a Steeler move. You're thinking they're going to blow a 3rd or 2nd round pick on a has-been quarterback to back up Mason Rudolph, but no. Fitzpatrick with Miami, who has been had a great rookie year. Number 11 pick, Alabama, better than anything I think the Steelers could pick this year. Once out of Miami, because Miami basically is the 1983-84 Penguin equivalent of doing everything he had to lose the game so he gets a first round pick. So they send the first round pick from next year. They flip. They get Miami's 4th round pick next year for their 5th round. And then they give we get their 7th round for a 6 in 2021. So that's not a bad trade. I'm not quite sure why people are whining about picking this right now. you're going to find out whether it's talent or just poor play calling by Keith Butler, because Steven Nelson is a quality defensive back. I like Terrell Edmonds. You now have Fitzpatrick back there, and Joe Hayden is a quality cornerback. So you have a quality defensive backfield. In Fitzpatrick, you have a guy who can cover the middle, cover the tight end down the middle if need be. He's a guy that can play cornerback. He's a guy who arguably can play a light linebacker. He's a hybrid. He's a highly talented guy, and what you get with this guy is not having to wait 1 or 2 years before the rookie develops. Devin Bush, it's looking like he's coming along, but like Troy Polamalu, who, as people forget, really stunk the first half of his rookie year before he started coming around. So it takes a while for these guys to move around. So you're drafting this guy, you get him you get this guy in a trade, you get him 4 years, and you've already gotten that awkward rookie period out of the way. So I think this is telling his team, unlike the Pirates, which that'll be our lone Pirate mention of this half. But unlike them, that's telling your fan base, that's telling your players, screw you if you think we're going to give up on this season. We believe in Mason Rudolph. We believe in this team. And I love the move. You're an infinitely better defense right now. Who the hell was thinking of Cameron Kelly, who I believe was playing in the AAF, was the guy who was going to make it? I mean, right now, I'm listening to Mark Madden was on our boy Stan show today, and he said something about taking it from defense and going to offense. While Ben has looked like crap, and I think, as I said, they looked up, Mark Madden, who was on there, basically came out and said, our Pittsburgh boy, James Conner, has sucked this year.
Yep.
It's not been a matter of the lineman doing a horrible job, I don't think. I mean, from what I saw up there, there were several times he kind of tiptoed into the hole or missed the hole altogether. He's running very tentative. He's not bursting in there. I'm not saying he's not trying, but there's something mentally there that, and I, agree with Madden that this guy has sucked. This guy has been
it looks that way.
The reason. I mean, you put Snell in, and he basically squirted through the hole. I mean, it wasn't a big hole he ran through originally. It got big after he made the first. But I mean, that's what you need to see from James Conner. I mean, to pick up a rookie quarterback, and everybody remembers Ben's 14-0 start. It wasn't because Ben was throwing for 400 and 500 yards a game. It's because everybody picked it up at that point when Maddox got hurt. Juju needs to pick it up. I mean, Juju needs to show that he's a number one receiver. I understand that everybody else has sucked and they're probably double and triple teaming him. But you know what? Vance McDonald showed he could be, or he should be, a focal point of the offense when Mason Rudolph came in. James Washington, and say what you want about him, this man has chemistry with Mason Rudolph. So made a great catch on one of his few poorly thrown passes.
They were college teammates, right? They were college.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the two of them just torched Pitt twice and torched several other teams, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
So I think he's going to make James Washington better. Because you know what? You love Ryan Switzer for his guts, but he's never going to be anything that's going to be dangerous.
No.
Moncrief,
fifth option, yeah. Fourth and fifth option, yeah. Yep.
I mean, Moncrief has the capability, but if it's in his head, he's done. So you need these guys to pick up. The offensive line, he's going to play behind still one of the great offensive lines of all time, and Matt Feller, who's a Bloomsburg boy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
A PSAC boy, Matt Filer. So you're going to have to do what you did when Ben got under there. You're going to have to be a little more conservative, although I think I like what Mason Rudolph brings to the table at this point. And I'm not going to say he's going to be a Ben Roethlisberger over his career, But I think at this point, he's a little further ahead than Ben was when he was forced in. Ben was only 2 games into his career.
Arm certainly comparable, it looks to me, and maybe better.
Yeah. And again, it's going to take a lot for him to be better than Ben. I mean, Ben is, in my estimation, the greatest quarterback this franchise has had.
Yep.
So I'm not giving up. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs, because I think they're in a hole right now that they might not be able to get out of, even though it's only 2 games into it. But this makes your defense better. And they need to, quite frankly, dummy down the defense a little bit more, because I'm not sure the coaches understand it like Dick LeBeau did, because you certainly have as good a talent there as you've had in ages. Fletch, what do you think of?
Well, I guess the first thing to say, just to pick up on something you were talking about, Dave, teams that start 0-2 have an 11% chance of making it. So let's not get our hopes up too far.
Yeah.
I love the trade, and I'll tell you why. They basically got a first-round pick next year this year.
Yeah.
They didn't have to go out and spend – that was a pick they were going to use it for next year anyway, for a corner or defensive back, safety, something like that. Now you got it this year. So I thought it was a brilliant move. Bold, very un-Steeler-like, as you said.
Yeah.
I will also agree with you that, the Rudolph played well. I think if the Steelers got the ball back again, they were going to win that game. I really do. But there are some problems with the defense, as we've been seeing. And a lot of it, I think, is scheme as well as execution. For the life of me, on a couple of those plays, I don't understand why they didn't spy Russell Wilson. You got a scrambling quarterback. Why not make that adjustment? If they're going to pick up all of your pressure, then that frees him up to do a lot of things with his legs, and he's great at that. He always has been.
Yeah, improvisation.
And he just makes things happen. He's a very dynamic quarterback. So why not spy him? The other part of it too, you mentioned there's communication problems on the defense at times, and I think part of it goes down to who's wearing the green dot. Sometimes they're giving it to T.J. Watt, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think when Vince Williams went out at inside linebacker, he's the one who usually has the green dot. He's the one that the coaches are communicating with. He's the one who's spreading it around to the rest of the defense and making sure they're in position and they know what their assignments are. We had a couple of times in that game where there were guys who were completely uncovered, whether it was a blown coverage, miscommunication, or whatever. But that's been happening a lot. Also, just being able to cover the middle, Dave, as you mentioned, what we saw in both of these games is you saw an adjustment in the second half that the Seahawks made. Again, they were clearing out with their receivers and having someone come underneath. And until the Steelers figure out a way to stop it, they're going to be seeing that a lot. Especially you're facing San Francisco, West Coast offense team. You're going to see that all over the place.
Yeah, they took advantage of Devin Bush's inexperience there, and that's something they're going to have to shore up, and hopefully this trade helps do that.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because you're right. He can play a lot of positions, but I think that they need to get him in one position and keep him there for at least until he learns the defense better. So that's going to be interesting. The running game's got to improve. I mean, they've got to be, whether it's Connor, whether it's Snell, whoever it is, they've got to take some of the pressure off of Rudolph. I mean, next week, you're going to have the 49ers who have won 2 pretty impressive games on the road.
Yeah.
They're coming in there, and they will have a full week to diagnose and dissect Mason Rudolph and find out, what are his tendencies, what are his potential weaknesses, so on. I mean, keep in mind, a lot of the yardage came on 2 plays that he made. One was a flea flicker and one was a screen. So those aren't typical in the pocket type of passes. So let's wait and see what happens. But I like his poise. I like the fact that he certainly has the confidence to make this happen. And while I'm not ready to throw in the towel yet, I just want everyone to realize this is going to be an uphill battle. Yeah. They dug themselves a hole. And the other implication that this has is really going to be on Tomlin going forward too. If this looks to be a bad year and they decide that Mason Rudolph is not the answer, they may, and if it's a losing year, the Steelers may make a move with Tomlin. I wouldn't be surprised. And I think they would have to look at bringing in a more offensive-minded coach to work with a young quarterback. Now, that being said, they obviously believe in Mason Rudolph because you don't make that trade unless you believe you quarterback who can lead you.
That's right.
And from what you hear about him off the field, he's maniacal as far as his preparation, which you loved it. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be a Tom Brady, but that was the one thing you knew about Tom Brady going into New England, and why I was stunned as good as he was, but I wasn't stunned he was successful.
Well, let's also see what Ben's role turns out to be this year. I mean, Ben was not particularly pleased with the picking of Rudolph last year. I don't know that he did a lot to help him. Both,
he sent out a note that said he's behind him. He just
sounds like nothing. Yeah, sounds like nothing last year, but he did seem to change his tune recently. Yeah.
So he apologized for getting hurt, and he said, "I support Mason." So you got to believe him at his word, huh?
Yeah, I mean, Ben's taking shots for lack of leadership. So
yeah, you're right. That was a whole bullshit thing for 3 years. He's telling him, "I might retire. I might retire. I might retire." So
we've talked about it. Yeah.
Why'd you get a quarterback? I didn't say I'd retire. So it is. Yeah, that's a great speech, and I think that's a huge thing. And Mason Rudolph has done it despite that. But again, you never know what you don't know whether a defense is going to confuse him. He's a rookie, and you're right. That's why you need the running game, because you can't put it all on him until he gets some experience going against first-team defenses.
Well, and the other thing that's going to be interesting too is that Ben audibled a lot. He took a lot of the players that were coming in from the sidelines, and he did what he wanted to do.
Changed it, yeah. Yep.
But now you have a quarterback who's going to be following the game plan as prepared by Randy Fitchner. Fitchner's got a week to really figure out what are some plays that's going to make Rudolph feel comfortable that he can succeed in. Yeah. So that's going to be interesting too, because Rudolph didn't get a lot of snaps before in preparation before this game. So he'll have a full week. Well, actually, you know what he did, because Ben took that Wednesday off. Yeah. And so he did get to run the first team. So that was fortunate.
Yeah. But again, and you're going to see what kind of coach Fitchner is. Is he just Ben's lackey, or is he a viable NFL offensive coordinator? We're going to find that out.
I'll tell you what, I like the flea flicker call. It was a beautiful timing.
It was awesome. I thought they called a much better game after Ben left, to be honest.
Well, I think it's because they were following the game plan as prepared.
Yeah.
I mean, Gary, I'm sure you're disappointed that they didn't sign Kaepernick in this off season, but this off week. But
I mean,
first, Gary, turn around. Do you have the number 7 on?
No. Yeah, look, honestly, I don't have a big problem with Kaepernick. I mean, as a player, honestly, I think he had that 1 year. And he had to me, he had way too happy feet to play this position consistently in that league. So taking the politics aside, I'm not really sure how much more he improves them. Now, I am concerned if Rudolph gets cracked next week, then what are you going to do? But it's nothing to do with his politics or anything else. I'm not really sold on him. I'm just not. I mean, he had a big arm. He could run like hell, but he had a lot of trouble after that first season. He didn't make any adjustments. I know that's not just him. That's the team and the coaching staff and everything else. But I mean, I see this a little bit differently, because maybe I'm not there. Like some of the things you guys are talking about. I mean, they weren't winning the Super Bowl anyway. Okay, no. Let's face it. Now, were they a playoff team with Ben in there? Yeah, maybe very, very good shot. I'm going to talk about the schedule in a couple minutes, but a couple things you guys said I completely agree with. And, to me, the biggest pressure here falls on Tomlin and the offensive coordinator, because, for a lot of years, they had power in the past when you had the big 70s teams, the 80s teams. Franco wasn't power, but they had power offensive lines and tremendous defenses. And even when Bettis was there, they would beat you certain ways. And then Brown comes and the rules change, and they were one of the best passing offenses in football. Now they've got a lot of babies, new faces. I think the problem with the concern I have, and I'm jumping around, but the concern I have with Schuster and Connor, as much as I like those guys, the big knock on both of them was their foot speed wasn't so good. And that's showing a little bit that I've seen in the first 2 games. And I haven't seen as much as you guys have. But, Connor is running tentatively. I'm a little bit surprised at that, but he's not the fastest. I think he's the kind of guy you got to, like, pepper him around a little bit, run, have him catch the ball. He showed he could catch the ball last year. I like Schuster. He's pretty big for a receiver in the NFL, which you need these days, but he's not the fastest either. So those guys, when you got that kind of mix that we've got now, you got a young receiver can't catch the ball because I guess he's afraid of getting hit, who knows, whatever. You got some foot speed that's average. You got a quarterback that's young. To me, the biggest challenge here is, for Tomlin's job security, as Chris pointed out, if he does a good job here and gets him in contention and his staff does a good job with all that nonsense of last year aside, honestly, I think he gives himself a nice chance to stay in Pittsburgh for quite a while. If this becomes that they look completely confused and Rudolph's getting sawed in half and they keep trying to have Schuster beat every top flight corner in the league and they don't mix it up, short passing, quick offenses, no huddles, and use what they got, I honestly think that Tomlin's probably going to be in a little bit of trouble because he's going to get a chance here to prove a lot of people wrong out there who've never supported him the way they should have, in my personal view.
And he didn't get a long extension, correct, Fletch?
He only got 1 year.
1 year.
1 year. So, unfortunately, all of this really puts the pressure on him, and it puts the pressure on this offensive coordinator. Can't just throw the ball up, let Brown run under it now or beat somebody. He made Connor look better. As much as I can't stand the guy, and a lot of people can't, he still made Connor better. He made Schuster better. I like McDonald. He's a prototypical new tight end. He's had some injuries, but he's prototypical. Move it around. Make it run some everything. Run and shoot. No huddle offense. Like, they're going to have to really go to work here, work harder. I think they're going to have to beat teams with a lot of misdirection, a lot of spread around. Teams don't know what's coming. On the defensive side of the ball, I still think the problems still exist. I mean, I've never seen – I know I keep harping – I've never seen such poor tackling in that secondary despite the fact that those guys are tremendous athletes. I'm not sure you're going to be able to do anything about that in midseason. That may just be football now. I still think some of the defense's problems there. But, you can do the same thing on that side of the ball that you're doing on the offensive side of the ball. It can't just be Steeler football, the 70s, 80s, and it can't be Brown and Roethlisberger and everybody else associated with it. And I think, to me, my dad always taught me, look at the schedule in the NFL. Because people panic. I hear the 11%. I get that. You only got 16 games to play. But does this schedule frighten the hell out of you guys? It doesn't frighten me that much. Honestly, take a look at it. Let's start with it. San Francisco. Yeah, 2 impressive wins. I agree. I think the win in Tampa was impressive. They whipped them pretty good. Cincinnati, I don't know. I still feel that organization, like Chris says, always self-destructs. But they still won the game. They won it big. But Pittsburgh has San Francisco next. Is this Montana? Is this even Steve Young? No, they're beatable. That team faltered last year down the stretch. Cincinnati, self-destruct. You got 2 of them. Baltimore, I still think Pittsburgh, even with a compromised roster or a rookie quarterback who's taken 12 downs, could beat Baltimore once. They rely on, what's his name, Jackson. How much do you think he's going to last? He's going to get crunched at some point. Hopefully the Steelers get him with him out. LA out in LA, the Chargers, that's probably a loss, I think. I hate to say it. Miami, that's a win, even with Rudolph. Indianapolis, I don't know. Luck in there maybe, and the prime luck. This isn't the dominant schedule. The Rams are probably a definite loss. I think Cleveland's going to self-destruct. I still say that. Picking up, I don't care how talented Beckham is. He caused a ton of problems. He's like what we saw in your city the past few years. Mayfield, part of the problem, I think, with the Schuster and the Connor is the league's had a whole year to adjust. In football, as much as it's, far behind the other sports for me, football does a very good job of looking at stuff in the offseason and preparing for it. And I felt New England had really gotten Connor's number. He had no shake and bake at all. They knew exactly what the hell he was going to do. And I thought, as much as that offensive line is a quality one, I thought they were poor in that game too, to be honest.
Anybody knows what Connor's going to do. That was a problem in that game. But also, when you're getting that in situations like they were, you need to hit that hole. And after the third,
I agree. I'm not disputing, Dave. I'm with you. I don't understand what's in his head. And I think, I don't love Madden, but I think he's right about this. He's often right about a lot of things. He can get past his bluster. I don't know what's wrong with Con. I'm a little surprised.
Right about me in 1982 when I scored a hat trick against him in deck hockey at Duquesne. He wasn't right there. My only hat trick ever.
I'll go into the cage with him if he wants to, but
it was kind of a cage.
I meant the MMA cage, but,
okay.
But I mean, he's right. If you can get past his like loud tone and everything, he's usually right about a lot of stuff. I'm not disagreeing with you on any of that.
Yeah.
But again, this is where your coaching staff. This isn't kids football, but this is where the Tomlins of the world, the offensive coordinator, say, James, you had a fantastic year. You're the man here, man. Start going hard. Okay, we need you to. You're I hate to say it, you're becoming kind of a leader here, whether you want to be or not. So what's on your mind? Like, I'm not saying coddle. I'm not big coddling ever, particularly major college sports or pro football or anything else. But I mean, I do think like something. You're right. Something seems wrong. But it's only 2 weeks too. When I look at that schedule, I don't see this being a 5-10, 5 or 5-11 I mean, it's very likely an 8-8. You pull a couple of breaks and they get the offense that they're really surprising people. I don't think this season's lost in any way, shape, or form. I do think Rudolph's going to go through some really like kind of adjustment periods. But hell, if he's throwing short, flat passes and they're using what they got, they're using everybody. A lot of NFL coaches are pretty copycat, man. They're not going to know how to deal with that. A lot of teams don't do that mixing stuff anymore. Shotgun up to the line. Tight end, fullback or a fullback even to catch a pass. Got to be really creative here with what's happened. And in a way, they weren't really prepared as an organization for this kind of thing to happen. Brown going, Bell being moved, and Roethlisberger. They didn't really fill it up enough that they could do it. But I still think that they're probably a hell of a lot better, like we always say, than they showed in the first 2 weeks, and they're not as bad as they showed in the first 2 weeks. So, but that schedule, at the end of it, you got Arizona. Again, no guaranteed Super Bowl lock or challenger. Buffalo? I don't know. New York Jets? Really? I mean, this is not a tough schedule. That's where the 9-6-1 in a way is benefiting. So I'm not ready to throw in any towel, and I just think it's going to be interesting to see what Tomlin and the offensive staff does.
No.
And I think on defense, I think you're going to have to do the same. I think you're going to have to really surprise people with your blitz packages, as Fletch says, the schemes. I think you're going to have to do a lot of confusion, a lot of misdirection. And honestly, you can win a few games by doing that. You win 3 games unexpectedly or 2 in 16. That season's not a lost cause.
Yeah.
So I'm not.
Let me ask you guys this though. Let's say this is the end for Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah. When
we look back at that era, did they get everything they could have? Did they underachieve?
I know many people will disagree with this, but with that defense, you were not going to win any more Super Bowls. So
I'm concerned.
You can say what you want about the great and they had probably some of the best offensive talent together that they've ever had. And that being said, they were not going to win another with that defense. It's next to impossible to win Super Bowls with that. So no, I consider 2 Super Bowls in the Ben era to be a successful year.
Me too.
I think that they should have had one more, whether it was the Green Bay, probably the Green Bay game. I think they should have won that game.
Yeah.
I think to me the one really disappointing loss in the playoffs was the Jacksonville one, because that was just they were exposed that game. They didn't seem to be prepared. They were looking forward to a matchup with New England. But I'd agree with you, Dave. I mean, I think that anytime look at it this way, there's been how many Super Bowls?
53 before this year. Yeah.
You got 6 of them.
Yeah, that's a pretty good ratio.
That's
I mean, theoretically, you should have 1 or 2 at this point in time if you have your share. So.
And you went to what, 8? You went to 8, I guess.
8.
And went to 8 of 53. Would you take that in any other business?
Sure. But maybe it's just that we're so damn spoiled.
Well, I think that's true.
The merger, how many? I mean, most years they've been in it. They've got one of the best records in the NFL since the merger.
Agreed. And to me, that's just sensational reporting. It is why people's expectations got up. And I mean, when you're giving up those kind of yards, giving up those kind of points, it's going to happen in the playoffs. And
Yeah.
you know, it wasn't an offense that was going to win 52-51. It's not college. It just can't happen in professional football.
Right.
It rarely happens. So no, I think they consider themselves to have a successful era. I finally, the regular season stats were just too overwhelming for me not to put personally Ben ahead of Bradshaw in as the Steelers' greatest quarterback, still even being as slight as it is, and it is slight. So I think if he retires now, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer and the greatest quarterback, and you know, can be proud of the time he spent here. Peyton Manning, is better as he was, as people kept saying, still won how many because of him. I don't give him credit for that Denver. He just didn't make a mistake.
Right.
You know,
I agree.
As the lead guy, as the lead quarterback. So,
I mean, you know, whether you like Roethlisberger personally or not, or whether you like the rule changes, they are what they are. Those were the conditions. So when you look at it on its face, I mean, he has to be one, in my view.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I agree.
Too overwhelming. But all right, gentlemen, we've talked Steelers. When we have our second episode of the week, Gary, put the glove up. Put the glove up. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, that's you. We're going to take the gloves off. Okay.
That's a 4-ounce glove, yes.
All right, my friends, you have a good night, and for once, go Notre Dame. That's for you, Mary Beth, for you, Kevin Hearn. Go Notre Dame.
Never thought I'd see that.
Me, I'm a little strong, stunned, but I get it.
It'll be off next week. So, have a good night, my friends.
You too.